We're going to record this. All right. So basically, guys, it's important that we have the most tools possible, because the more tools you have, especially in a changing market, the better off you're going to be and the more money you can make. You'll hear me talk about one of my agents here during the last downturn who watched her whole book of business disappear, and how she actually ended up making more money inside of a year than she had before, a market had collapsed. And this is something that can work for pretty much everybody. So we're going to get started. So I have done seller financing transactions everywhere. I've done them in Canyon Rim. I've done them at Harvard Yale. So I've done them in West Valley. I have done them out in West Jordan. There is literally no place that you cannot do a seller finance deal. You do them in the very best areas and in the very worst areas. I did this one for 0 down and just took over the payments at 3%. Turned around and cashed out a couple of years later, made about $200,000. So, Mike, what is the return when you put nothing down on something and you collect, $200,000?
Well, your return is 200,000%.
Yeah, it's an infinite return.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. That's where we want to be. It's an infinite return. One of the biggest mistakes that real estate agents make is they do not buy property for themselves. They don't buy their own home, or typically you'd be surprised how many agents do not own their own home out of my agents. But a lot of them never buy rental property. You want to be buying rental property, things that are going to leverage upwards for you. Even if they don't cash flow a ton, right now, they'll cash flow later. So I bought them in Sandy. This is over by my house. I have bought both of these houses. Both were financed with $30,000 down. Unrelated sellers. I just walked and talked, and this one here I made a ton of money on. I should have been greedier because I probably could have made another 100,000 on it, but I flipped this one over here, and I bought it, put $30,000 down on it. My payments were $900 a month, and I turned around and sold that thing for $150,000 more than anything else in the area, within a year. And so it was a great seller financing deal. So there's a lot of things you want to do. We closed this one. Actually, this is a slide here, but we closed this one, 20,000 down, no payments for 6 months. It was a great purchase price. Sold the back end off of it for $100,000 to this neighbor. So what do you think that did to my return? Now, I have done this. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I recently did this with one of my clients where we're listing her house in a nice area, and I went around to all of the neighbors to see if they'd be interested in buying a piece of her property. And so we had 1/10 of an acre going for quite a bit of money. And so there was one that wasn't really useful on her property. And the neighbor's like, I don't have to think about it. I'll give you 30,000 or 35,000. But this was 23 feet back here, and we got $100,000 for it. So it's about being creative. We've done this hundreds of times, and here's what you're going to learn today: the various types of seller financing, when to use each one effectively, how to explain it to clients, what to be aware of, and what to avoid. And then maybe if I have time, I'll get into some tax strategies on that and how you build your personal wealth. We're going to teach you how to spend straw into gold. That this is one of those places where you can take a whole lot of nothing and turn it into a huge pile of something. You can seller finance anything. This is a castle that I was doing a seller finance transaction on. Mike probably would know this area outside of Dresden. And, you can do a seller financing on just about anything that you can imagine. If you can think about it, you can do it. And this castle is awesome because it's Prosen Castle. It's on 15 acres right on the Elbe River and includes these buildings. So there's a lot that you can do if you can just get creative. So I went from castles to $8,000. It's horrible when you come home to, hey, woohoo, I've got a castle to, I'm getting a divorce, right? And my ex-wife had said, I want a divorce and I want the money. And I said, well, it's never made me happy. Take it all. I just need $8,000. And that wasn't very long ago. That was maybe 9 years ago, 8, 9 years ago. So fortunately, about 4 years later, using seller financing. So this is real world. This isn't just theory. This is stuff that I've done. I had turned that into $1.4 million. And so there's a lot that you can do if you just get after it. So why is this essential? Well, mortgage rates have risen at the fastest rate in a decade. They're going up, they're going down, they're going up, but they're probably not going much farther down. We've pushed a lot of people out of the market because every 1% increase pushes, 11% out of the market. We've lost a good, 30 to 40% of our market here in Utah. Those that have the skills, and combine those with market timing, are those that are going to be able to succeed in this market and create new wealth for themselves. Now, I'm still making money doing, traditional buying and selling with my team, all the other stuff that I was doing, but there is an increase in seller financing. And so you want to be aware of that because inflation is destroying our civilization. You can kind of see it here. What's funny is when we look at how much we used to be able to get from $20, back in 98, you got a lot, and now it's like $20. I can't hardly get anything, a package of cheese and a piece of fish or something, and if I'm lucky, and it doesn't even buy you a good steak. So it's important. We've been over $1 trillion in debt, and we're at record highs. It's important to have multiple streams of income because I don't think things are going to get better for a while. We're seeing how more businesses are laying off and downsizing, etc. A couple of weeks ago, you heard me talk about McDonald's closing all of their, U.S. corporate offices for a week as they try and restructure. So there's a lot that is going on. Western cities have been slashing prices. This was from the 11th, so 6 days ago in Salt Lake. It's nice to see an equity sign on the Deseret News, but it says home prices are down 90,000, from our peak here in Salt Lake County. So the wider your skill sets are, the less likely you are to be affected. If you pick up just one thing from this today, it's amazing what you can do. I went to a seminar. I've been going to the seminar. I'll talk about it at the end. The last 7 years, what I learned at that seminar has made me over $300,000 as an agent. So there's a lot more opportunities for listing. So you get larger buyer pools. You're going to edge out other, agents that are throwing their hand in the air and go, oh, I can't qualify my guy. That are clueless. They don't know this stuff. You can build a new list of buyers with cash. You can't qualify for traditional loans. You can close in days, not weeks. The bottom line is you're going to get more deals and closed and faster commissions. So Larry Fawcett was one of my agents for about maybe seven years, a great friend of mine. She came to me and said, Randall, what can I do? All my clients are I-10 clients. They're all Hispanics and they're not lending. Well, this was after about 2009. So I said, all right, let's do this. Let's start doing seller financing. And so we ran an ad, said if you had $10,000 in a steady job at that time, we'll find you a house. So she ended up closing about 30 sides a year, which was more than she was doing before that. And she cleaned up on it and made a great business for herself and bought some rentals. So you can do this too. Now, people always ask me when it comes to seller financing means that the seller becomes the bank, okay, that they're going to carry the note. And if they have a note on the property, let's say that like the one that I paid, $30,000 down on, he still owed about $200,000 on the property. So I wrapped his note inside of a trust deed note using a trust. We wrapped his note and I paid him on top of the money that he owed for the property. And on all of these loans, it always says, there's a due on sale clause, etc. Well, due on sale, there's no due on sale jail. You can, every one of you, do seller financing. It's not a big deal. I have never had a note called due. I had somebody call on a note and questioned me on it. And what I did was I quoted Garn Saint Germain, and we'll talk about that in a minute, which is where you can put a property in trust for your own benefit, and the banks can't call the note due except for under certain circumstances. So you'll see this where it says the lender may at its option call sums due and payable. Well, right now they'd be stupid if they did that, because the foreclosures are increasing and they just want to get paid. So you just have to disclose that not foreclosure, that there is a due on sale clause, or there might be a due on sale clause that could affect your seller financing transaction. You guys can always call me if you have one of these. Mike Fieldstitch is going out to meet with somebody in Tooele this morning on a seller financing transaction. He's going to call me later and I'll help him structure it. So you just have to disclose. So, you're going to say, well, why would people do this? Well, there's a few reasons. Right now, some people owe more on their property than it's worth. They bought it, too recently for it to have any increase in equity. It doesn't go up in value. They owe a lot on it. But the benefits for the seller are that you've got quick closings, continue to make payments. You can do income over time. You can spread taxes over time. All the buyers qualify. So any buyer that has got some money and can make payments qualify. They can leverage. They've got leverage against the property if they want to repossess it in this future, which is really interesting because I have seen people walk away from seller finance transactions where they had anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 down on them. They just walked. They just decided not to close, and they had the ability to close. They just decided they didn't want to close. So it's kind of interesting, but it also provides cash at closing, payments. It's easy to sell. You get higher rates, or you can list higher than other investments, and there's no property management if you're doing a seller finance deal. The buyer, they all qualify. It's easy close, quick property purchase, no mortgage insurance. So that's going to save you some money. It's low closing costs, no lender fees, little or no money down. And you can negotiate the terms with the seller because everything in real estate is negotiable. And they can raise the capital. Sometimes, they can even trade something to the seller. I was talking with my friend a while back who got a sailboat. And it was like, okay, yeah, I got a sailboat. I took a sailboat. It was a part trade, on this property. So it's good. Again, some of the additional seller benefits are you can get a top price even in a rapidly declining market, especially when the interest rate's out there for most people around 6%. And you've got somebody who locked in at 2.7 or 3%. I was talking with somebody here last week on Friday who had gotten their loan at 2.7%, but they want another house. And they don't need to sell this one to get another house, but they don't want to have it hanging over them. So they're looking at seller financing. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? That's a great rate. It's under 3%. So if the seller owns it free and clear, it's great. He can carry the mortgage for monthly income without the hassle of being a landlord, or upkeep. And you can structure that to where they can't pay it off for 10 years or 20. You can make it however you want it and however you need it to be. And so there's just a lot of buyer benefits that you can see there. I'm not going to take a lot of time to go into those, but just probably the biggest thing is more flexibility. Okay. And they can afford a lot more house than they can at 5.5% or 6.5% or 7% or wherever it's at. And you have the same ownership benefits that you do with traditional mortgages. And they get better tax benefits, than they do what they're renting. And there's no limit to the number of houses that you can buy. You can get down payment from any source, even credit cards. You can borrow the money. You don't have to season the money. You can trade something. Like I've got property I probably would have traded for a nice motorcycle during the summer, last year. That's part of a down payment. There's a lot of things that we do. I'm trying to think. Guns. I always like guns and ammo. And I think I've done a fair amount of trading and got some pretty good collection after a while. as a buyer, there's no PMI. You don't have to worry about primary mortgage insurance. I mean, that's awesome. Everything is negotiable. So, and buyers looking for rentals have, additional benefits. We talked about this last week. Those of you that were there, you can get a 30% tax write-off. So if I spent $30,000 on a $600,000 house, right? I put $30,000 down on it, and they're out there. They're even out there on the MLS, believe it or not. Usually, you're thinking, okay, you have to have 20% of the purchase price, et cetera, which is very common. But I have found a few where they're just like, they want out of it and they're desperate to get out of it. The listing agent's barely taking anything from a commission. So 30 grand pays the buyer's agent commission, gives a little bit to the listing agent, and the seller's happy. But in this circumstance, I can take $30,000 down on a $600,000 property, and I can write off $180,000 of it right away. We covered that last week, and I put that link on YouTube. It's amazing what you can do, but 30% of the purchase price typically will go into a tax write-off that's immediate, not like the standard, 27 and a half year write-off where we're depreciating property at. So that's important. We're going to talk about the types of seller financing. So here's a rent to own. People are commonly aware of rent to own. It's lease options, master lease options, and master leases. So lease option, we all know what that is. A master lease option, one of my agents did a great job. LeBeau White did an amazing job with this. He found somebody that was going to be a mission president for the LDS Church, and so they had a three-year mission call. They had a house in a very nice neighborhood. They were worried about leaving it empty, and they wanted somebody there and wanted to make a little bit of money. So he leased it from them for $1,200 a month. And then he turned around and subleased it for $2,400 a month. And he did that for 3 years. And so if you think about that, he made, what is that? Like $40,000, $1,200 cash flow every month on a master lease option. So, or sandwich lease option. A master lease option, we use those on apartment buildings when we're buying those, which is where we go in, we negotiate an end price, and we say, okay, here's what we're paying you. We're going to pay you this much a month for your apartment building, whatever you're going to get in rents. I've done this overseas. I did one of these in Kathmandu, where I said, here's what we'll pay. This is what we'll pay you, on a monthly basis. So you don't have to worry about getting your rents. Anything on top of that is mine. And so the thought is there, you go in, you buy an apartment building, or you help your client buy an apartment building using a master lease option with a little bit of money down. You increase the rents, which increases the value of the building. And then your client is able to get traditional financing without coming in with any money. And so there's a lot of things that are available there. This is just a quick overview on leases, master lease, sandwich lease options, etc. When it comes to seller financing and outright purchases, we do, let me just mute there. We do several types: bond for deed or land installment contracts, or a trust deed and note, or a wraparound mortgage with a trust deed. So the difference is, for a bond for deed or land installment contract, you would use that on a Utah housing property, because, or a lot of times for sellers, I actually don't mind using that when I'm a seller, because title stays in the name of the seller. The buyer has all of the rights of ownership, all the same rights of ownership as any traditional purchase, using a bank. But it makes it easier to foreclose if you need to. It's typically just basically an eviction. And so when you're selling, it's not a bad thing to do. Jack Petty over at Liberty Title does a lot of those. Christine at GT Title does those. It works great. If they own it free and clear, a trust deed note, it's a great way to do it, because with a trust deed note, it's just like being the bank, and you can do a simple foreclosure process if needed, or a wraparound mortgage with a trust deed, which is where you take an existing loan at maybe it's 3%. So let's say that your Met is wants to buy one of my houses, and I have that house at 3%. And she and I have negotiated a purchase price that is, let's say I bought it for 300, simple math, 300,000. I'm selling it to her for 4.25. I have a 3% interest rates, but she's fine with a 4% or 4.25%, interest rates. So I can wrap that. I'm paying the first mortgage off at the 3% that I have it, but I'm getting 4% on everything. So let's say that I've sold it to her at 4.25. I owe 200,000 on the property. I am making a 1% on that first 200,000 that's still owed on the property. Plus, I am making, the 4.25% on the other $225,000. So I can get monthly cash flow as well as an increased purchase price. Let me show you some of the things there. So, like the elephant in the room is, which is the best choice? Well, for buyers, it's going to be a trust deed. For sellers, I probably would like a contract for deed or bond for deed, especially in today's market. Or if you're doing a Utah housing property, you can do that with a contract for deed. Honestly, every situation is different, and how you choose to do it is up to you. I'm here for you. I can explain it to you, but any title company can walk you through this as well that deals with these type of transactions. Now, when I'm talking about trust, I'm not talking about do you trust me or not. I'm talking about using a trust. So I like to use trusts. Trusts keep the property out of the eye of the public. Nobody knows what I own. That's been good when you go to court because they can't pin anything on you and you have no assets. And typically it keeps you out of court because they can't find anything that's in your name. So everything that I own, I like to put into a trust. But it is also beneficial when you're talking about Garn Saint Germain. So if the property is into a trust, this is an act that was passed in 1982, which says that a bank cannot call a loan due if the trust was put in to place for the benefit of the original borrower. And so this is very simplistic. I'll get into this with you if you need a little bit more knowledge on it. But I had Matt Atkinson said, "Hey, Randall, I got a call from a bank and they're asking me because there's been a title change, into this trust." And I said, quote them Garn Saint Germain. Just tell them the Garn Saint Germain Act of 1982 says you can put the property into trust for the benefit of the owner without the banks being able to call it due. He just quoted Garn Saint Germain to him, and they went away and never heard from him again. So, as I said, you can bonus straw to gold by increasing the interest rates. Let me show you what that looks like. So on this property, and I think it was, what was it? It was like 600,000. I should have put that in there. I didn't screen capture that property. But at any rate, on this property, the monthly payment at 3.5% is $2,110 a month. At 5%, it's $2,523. At 6%, it's $2,817. You can typically get a higher interest rate and a higher purchase price with your seller financing than you're going to get conventionally. So even if if you have a client, let's say they're upside down in their property, and upside down, let's say they're not really upside down. It's like the property that I bought. They just didn't have enough equity to pay the agents to sell it, right? And they didn't have money to bring in to sell it. So I took it over, no money down. It became my property. I'm the owner on it. I'm on title. On a deal like that, you could help your client or them if an agent had been representing them, which I was not, and say, "Hey, look, your interest rate's at 3% or 3.5%. What if we boost that up to 4% or 5%?" In this case, it would have made them over $400 a month, and they would have been really happy with that. So they're just, it's all about tools. I am recording this, so we will put it out there later on, but these are ways to cash flow for your clients and make you look good as an agent. So like we said, how much should you ask for down on a down payment on either a lease or a purchase? As much as you can get. Okay. I worked on a property with my friend Alan where I was representing him as a real estate professional. And we had this little house out in the middle of nowhere. So think Duchesne, all right, where there's still houses that are cheap. And he had fixed this house up, and we're trying to sell it for $135,000. So we had a truck driver who had recently gone through a divorce and could not get a loan, but he had $100,000. So guess how much we got down on a $135,000 house? $100,000. And he was supposed to close in a year, meaning he was going to close the loan out, refinance the $35,000 within a year.
I gotta go.
And so if he didn't pay off in a year, he lost his $100,000. So I get as much as I can on a seller financing or on a lease option, etc. Get as much as you can. 15 to 20% is pretty common, but I'd get as much as you can. This is where you put your pirate hat on for your clients, and sometimes yourself as a client, and get as much as you can, and you negotiate for the most down. If you're representing the seller. So like I said, sometimes it's like a slot machine. You get $100,000 down on a $130,000 property somewhere like Duchesne. So the sandwich lease options is what I explained earlier. I should have moved that in the order. This is a combination of a couple of seminars I've given over the last year. But when we talked about the apartment buildings, or this was the case where my agent LeBeau had rented this property. So here's the lease right here is the bread, $1,200. He subleased it for $2,400, and the profit is the spread between the two for you or for your client. There's so much you can do if you understand this for a client that it is unreal. I've had clients come to me and say, I've worked with these other agents and they just released the contract because they said there was nothing that they could do to help me out. I had this property, I know there's something there, and can you help me do it? Well, one of those ended up being a $200,000 profit for the client. And so I helped the agent. It was Jane Spence. She's still with me today. And it's amazing what you can do if you can just wrap your mind around all alternatives when it comes to buying or selling or lease optioning, etc. So be creative. You can do it on houses, you can do it on castles, you can do it on apartment buildings. Most commercial property, in fact, has some form of seller financing in it. You want to cover your assets as well by using the right the right title company. Always use title even on seller financing, because you don't want to run into something like, hey, the person you thought you were buying the property from or selling to, etc., wasn't that person, or there was a bunch of liens on it that you were not expecting. Okay, I use a CYA as well. You guys can reach out to William. My agents can reach out to William, or you can reach out to me, bestequitybroker@gmail.com, and I will send you a copy of my seller financing acknowledgments and statements. And typically what I do with these as an agent or as a broker is I just copy and paste into a regular addendum. We're happy to share that with you. And it's all about the paperwork, right? It's all about disclosures. And I have not had any problems with this over the last 20 years, and I keep updating these. So it's important to just cover your assets by having the right stuff available. So let's talk about Dodd-Frank. Basically, I have agents ask me, well, isn't there a limit on how many of these I can do, within a year? Yeah, it deals with the mechanics for owner financing transactions to buyers who intend to live in the property as their primary residence within a year. Okay, so it can apply to new builds. It applies to owner financing contracts for deeds, but not lease options in most cases. And so there are times when you can do that. I actually worked one of these lease option deals out with one of my agents, and and we did a long-term lease option, which was amazing for her because it locked in the purchase price 13 years down the road. And it has been a great deal for her. She cash flows that property hard as an agent, rents it out, and makes a couple $1,000s a month. So it's really good. Dodd-Frank's a federal law, so it's the same in every state. And it's just it basically says if you're going to do a lot of this, you need a registered loan originator, so a mortgage guy to do it. So the important thing is for you that if you're doing one deal per year for a natural person, estate or trust, and not a negative amortization loans, but you make a good attempt to qualify your borrower, you don't have to do anything. So there's also a 3-deal exemption that says that you can do 3 deals a year without a mortgage guy qualifying them, but you have to qualify your buyer under an 8-part test. And so for most of you, it's not going to matter because you're not going to be dealing with people that are doing more than 1 of these a year or 3 of these, etc. But Lauren Patterson could actually help qualify them. He understands the Dodd-Frank exemptions very well. This is the 8-part test, which is basically the reasonably expected income or assets, current employment status, the monthly payment on the proposed loan, monthly payment on any other loans, monthly payments for mortgage-related obligations, current debt obligations, alimony, child support, and the monthly debt-income ratio for residual income and their credit history. And you just pull it up there and see if it looks like they could, actually make payments on that loan. So pretty simple, but I would say that if you're worried about it, if they're doing more than, a couple a year, reach out to a good loan person. If you're in Utah, Lauren Patterson's really good. That's who I would send them to. But basically the prohibitions that you need to worry about is under Dodd-Frank is, the interest rate's got to be fixed for 5 years, and then it can go up, for 2% a year, etc. No, balloon payments. They don't like balloon payments, but there are ways around that as well, which is taking the interest rates, fixing it, and then making the interest rate jump up 2% a year. That's a lot. So if the interest rate was 5% now, then it went to 7, and then it went to 9, somebody's going to want to get out of that quickly. But there's a limitless number of ways to structure this, and so the practical reality is that it doesn't apply when you're buying with owner financing. Doesn't apply to the buyer. If you're selling to a buyer that doesn't intend to live in the property as his primary residence, like you're selling it to an investor or selling around land or something like that, then or mobile home, etc. It just doesn't matter. Okay. So let's see. Let's go here. So the confused mind always says no. I wrote this article years ago for a magazine on seller financing. I've got a copy of it. I think I sent Mike Beilstich a copy of that, didn't I? In an email here a week or 2 ago. I thought I sent seller financing explained. I think I sent that to you in that email. Yeah. I can share that with anybody that's interested on it. But basically it goes over the benefits to the seller. And all you need to do here is understand, you don't have to be an expert at this starting out. You just have to understand the basics. You can say, look, yeah, I think we can seller finance this property. We can play with the interest rates. We can adjust it. We can give you cash flow. And get a little bit more money out of it. Here's how we can do it, etc. And then if you need help, you can call me, or you can, get a hold of the title company, etc. that does a lot of these, like GT Title does, it's done hundreds of these. Also Liberty Title, Jack's Petty, does a lot of those as well. So agents will say, well, which forms do I use? I do not like the MLS seller financing addendums because I never find that they're really good for the seller or the buyer. So I typically use an addendum and then copy and paste off of the CYA addendum and that I've offered to give you guys. So you can use it; it works. But for me, I'm just maybe I just am a little bit more tech savvy when it comes to protecting my buyer or my seller, and so I want to make sure that it's something that's crafted and not something that is just one size fits all, because usually one size fits all, it's kind of like a shirt that's 3 sizes too big. Yeah, you can put it on somebody that's 100 pounds and 5 foot tall, and it looks like a dress, and yes, it fits them. Yes, they can wear it. It's going to keep you from being naked, but it's not going to look good. It's not going to fit good. And so that's typically what I do. And they have, both of those title companies here in Utah have attorneys that they work with. Jax Petty is an attorney at Liberty Title, and there are 2 attorneys that own GT Title. And so that's why I do a lot of my work with Tyler Turner, GT Title, because he actually looks like this guy holding a question mark there a little bit, but because he's so good at it and he can help craft any terms that I need. And so that's important. All right. Any questions so far on seller financing? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you got one. I'm happy to answer it. Okay, so that's good. The important thing here is to understand that you can be creative. And so what this means is, just because the property that you see listed doesn't say seller financing on it, doesn't mean they won't do it. A lot of those that are listed that don't list seller financing as an option will do seller financing. In fact, over the last 4 months, I have had a ton of those who have said, hey, yeah, we'll do seller financing. And I'll say, well, it wasn't listed. Yeah, no worries, we'll do it. Just let me talk to my seller. We have bought a number of those seller finance that were listed as regular financing or FHA or conventional or whatever. And so that's important. So if you're working with somebody, you just got to go fishing, right? And typically it's not going to work as good on a property that's been on the market for a day. But I looked at one yesterday that's been on the market for like 200 days. And why is it on the market for 200 days? Because it's a little high, but a seller financing transaction, you can negotiate a lot of things with that seller, and they're not getting any money on it. The house is sitting empty. So they're definitely considering seller financing as a possibility, because their agent didn't know about seller financing. Their agent didn't mention it to them. Their agent didn't have any idea. They're like, oh, well, you owe this much on it. We have to list it, at this price. And so when I come along and say, hey, have you considered seller financing? What if we were to come in with, enough money to pay the agent's commissions and, a little bit extra, take over the note, and then we'll finance this property for 4 years. I typically don't like to go less than 10, but I have buyers that are happy with 4 years, because whatever their circumstances are or their situation is, they know it's going to change within 2 years, and they'll be able to get regular financing for the property. So it's just about trying to provide those types of options and opportunities to your sellers. When it comes to a buyer, like Mike Dodona, said today, says, I've got a guy who wants like a $600,000 property, but his credit's not that great, and that's where we look at it and go, great, let's see, how much do you have that you can put down? And we don't want to lose out on that buyer, because it's just like the $135,000 home I talked about in that small town, where the truck driver couldn't qualify for anything because he just went through a divorce. And he's a truck driver and self-employed, but he had $100,000 he could put down. And his lender said that he would have no problem qualifying him after a year had gone by from his divorce and all of the things that had gone on to destroy his credit. So there's a lot out there. I would also suggest learning as much as you can, always, in every way possible. Take advantage of seminars. You guys that are here in these Monday meetings, hopefully they're giving you some value. This should tell you, what you're able to do, give you some ideas when it comes to the different types of leases, sandwich lease options, master leases, etc. Not master leases, master leases. Seller financing transactions, types of seller financing transactions, whether it's bond for deed, where the title stays in the name of the seller until the buyer's paid the property off, but the buyer has all of the property rights, all of the tax write-offs, all of the benefits of ownership, or whether you wrap it around and use a trust deed and note. And then, you can get a hold of a title attorney or myself or somebody else and figure out which one of those is going to be best for you. So here's something that I'm doing. It's actually the end of next week. I'm going to Las Vegas, woohoo. And Mike's coming with me, actually. So Mike Fieldstitch. But it's the Paper Source Note Convention. It's the 27th to the 29th. For any of you that might be interested on it, I made $300,000 from what I have learned there. It was really funny. And I picked up an agent who is one of my top producers. And she had come to me from Keller Williams saying, hey, I've talked to 2 brokers and 4 agents. Nobody can figure out what to do with this property. The guy's in jail. He's in solitary. It's got all of these different issues. And so I took what I'd learned at this convention and ended up buying the note, shorting the other notes, the liens on it, $600,000 in liens on this property. And so I helped her turn that deal into a cash cow with a $230,000 profit in about 3 weeks. And it was all because, I'd learned something here at this note convention. And so if you guys want to go to this, if you use this discount, it's called Paper Profit. It's a discount code. You can get in there for about $300 right now, I think. And it's papersourceseminars.com. You can sign up there where it talks about the early bird discount. I don't think they've changed that, but put this Paper Profit in, it'll be $300. And that's cheaper than it typically is, because I think I paid $450 for like $400 to $450 for the last 6 or 7 years, but that's good. And then also, for those of you that might be interested, this October, we're going to have our annual trip to Nepal where we spend 2 weeks. We spend a week working in our charity. We spend a week sightseeing. The trip costs, including airfare, are usually about $2,500 to $3,500, where we go and see, some of the 8 tallest mountains in the world. The 8 tallest mountains in the world are all inside of Nepal. Mike's been in Nepal with me, and so, or by himself anyway, we've been in Nepal. There's a lot of temples, there's yaks, mountains. We did a jungle trek with some of my agents and friends here on the elephants. Lowland cruise down with the dugout canoes where you can see crocodiles. There's tigers, there's rhinos, Buddhist temples, burning the dead on the side of the river.
Watch out for those rhinos.
Yeah, Mike got chased by one. And it was pretty funny because the guy he was with starts running. And you know what they say, when a bear is chasing you, you don't have to be the fastest guy, you just have to be faster than the next guy, right? And so he did a sprint through the jungle. But Nepal, we spent a week working in our charity and a week working a week sightseeing. So a week with charity, a week sightseeing. Doing this through the travel agents, like $10,000, but it's a tough life in Nepal for a lot of people. Like, these women are carrying 100, 200-pound loads. They're 4 feet tall. These are hardwoods. These are well over 100 pounds, and these women are carrying this firewood, etc. You still see leprosy in Nepal, and we're there trying to help little girls like this one, where the literacy rate is sometimes 10% or less among the slums and among some of these poor indigenous villages. They're so poor that they don't even have writing paper. A lot of the kids, their parents will scavenge for plastic and other things, trying to make ends meet. So half of the children are underweight, 3/4 of pregnant women are anemic, 2/3 of Nepalese are without access to toilets, and 34% literacy among females in Nepal and 10% among the indigenous and Dalit classes. So we teach them on the ground, just like Mother Teresa did. They love having our agents come over with us. This is me a couple of years ago and like 30 pounds lighter. But we work with the 700 or 800 in our program, as well as 2,000 students in some of these schools that are so poor that they don't have any writing paper. We also do micro loans and help families. Like this lady, her husband died, left her with 6 children. And so she was struggling and scavenging, and we set her up with a food cart. This was where she started out with. This is where she's at today. And she makes as much as a nurse does in Nepal. So Dakota, you've probably seen, some of you know him, was one of my agents. He goes every year, and Hannah, and it's just been a great trip for agents and people that want to go and see Nepal, see somewhere different, and do some good at the same time, and see how we teach these children, just like Mother Teresa did, and enjoy the wildlife and the culture and everything. So in any event, that is what we've got to offer, and we hope that you guys will join us. Either if you want to come with me on the next week to Las Vegas and meet us down there, it'd be great to see you there for some learning, or come with us to Nepal and expand your horizons a little bit. And let's see, it looks like there's in chat there was 4, but let me see if I can see chat. Can you bring spouses and children? Yes, you can bring spouses and children. I'll be putting this on YouTube, and I'll send it out to all of my agents via the text. The discount hotel, hopefully it is, I don't know. But yes, bring your spouses and children. We bring everybody. I actually had 21 people that came with us in October, and some brought their children. Several of them did. I think the youngest this time was 13, but we've had children all the way down to 8 or 9. I had agents from 4 different brokerages, so you can invite other people. We don't care, but it's a great trip. You get some awesome tour guides, woohoo! And it's an amazing time. And usually the people that go say that it's life-changing. So if there's any questions on any of that, if not, I will wish you all a wonderful week and much success. But just remember, on seller financing, you probably want to listen to the video on this when I get it uploaded, and just become aware. Okay, oh, sorry, Jeff's asking me a question here. Where do I find homes for seller financing? Okay, so where do I find homes for seller financing? Well, on the MLS. I found a lot of those on the MLS. Some are listed seller financing, but it doesn't matter. If they're not listed, go ask, right? Go ask. I have also advertised for it. I've gone through neighborhoods. I've knocked doors. I've sent letters out. Right now, when it comes to the increase in foreclosures, increase in defaults, this would be a time where you could reach out to them and say, hey, I think I could help you out. Let me save you from a foreclosure, and I can help you, improve your credit, etc. And you can do a seller finance transaction with those people, give them enough money to move somewhere else, wherever they were planning on moving to, and take over their payments, or your client takes over the payments. I mean, there's a lot that you can do, but it's the same that you would do as an agent. Sphere of influence, look on the MLS, send out mailers, door hangers, advertise. I mean, there's so many things that you can do, but generally just ask. In fact, a lot of you guys know that I do a lot of investment properties. And so I think I've got maybe somewhere between 8 and 10 properties right now that I'm flipping. Half of those are seller financed. We have done seller financing on about 40 to 50% of the properties that we have flipped over the last several years. And it was really funny, but Trevor's like, well, let's just ask, let's see if they'll seller finance on these, because typically we were paying hard money of 12%. And he said, let's just ask. So we just started asking people. And they're like, okay, I bought a house up by Willow Creek Country Club. I put it under contract, and these people were really stuck on getting the most out of it possible. And so I made them the offer that I could pay them cash, and I was going to wholesale it because I had so many that I was flipping that I wanted to just make some money wholesaling it, meaning I put it under contract and sell the contract to somebody else for $50,000 more. Well, I said, what if I can tell you how you can get another $10,000 or $15,000. I said, what if you seller finance this to us? We'll give you like $30,000 down, and then we'll make the payments on this for up to 8 months. You can seller finance it, you get another $10,000 or $15,000 that way. Well, the payments on it for a house that was like $500,000, this was a couple of years ago, $500,000 typically would be $5,000 a month for me. They said, well, would you be able to pay $1,800 a month? I was like, absolutely. So I turned around, called Clay Rockwood up, who was flipping homes, and said, hey, Clay, I've got one for you. I ran the numbers by. He goes, that's a little tight for me. I'm not sure I can pull that off, because I think I was trying to get like 30 or 50,000 of the wholesale fee on it. And I said, it's got seller financing, for 8 months, so you can go in there and remodel it, etc. And it's $1,800 a month. And as soon as I said that, he said, sign me up, I'll take it. And so cha-ching, it was a quick paycheck for me. Seller financing, you can use it for your clients, yourself, make it work for you. It's all about taking the most tools and trying to figure out how to use all of those resources and put them together into what is going to work best. So if I am out looking for property, I tell the people that go out looking for investment property for me, I tell them, this is what I'm looking for. I call it the 5 fingers of real estate. And I said, can I wholesale it? Because no money down, I make money, I print money on it for an infinite return, right? And in the last year, I've done 2. One was over 90,000, one was over 70,000, but typically it's at least, 10 to 30,000 bucks. Can I flip it? Can I sell or finance it for a long-term holder rental? Can I lease option it? Or can I collect a commission? Okay, those are the 5 things that are running through my mind. Whereas agents, like the Jane, when she was with Keller Williams, couldn't figure out what to do with this guy's in jail. It was a meth house. It was, whatever had happened. And I came along because everybody else was thinking, oh, you can only do a short sale, but it's going to sale, and he's in solitary, and all of those things. And I did an end run around it. So let's buy the note. And so I bought the note and shorted everybody else, the other $600,000 in liens. And it was nuts because I ended up with that property. We sold it for nothing, but I ended up with that property for $45,000 when it was all said and done, after I bought the note, got the insurance from the note that covered defaults, shorted everybody else on it, and I sold it for $330,000 in 3 weeks. And so that's what I learned from that Paper Source convention. I took ideas that I got from that, put them into play there, and made it work. And so it's about leveraging your time and your talents and your money, and your clients' money, etc. These are things that you want to do. Every one of you should be looking to buy rental property. I can't say enough about buying rental property, and seller financing is great, especially if you can't qualify for traditional, a traditional house, using traditional financing. And then I don't know, somebody's messaging me again on chat. Let's see. Oh, 5 fingers again. Okay, if you guys have questions, just go ahead and unmute and tell me, because I don't always see the chat because I'm like, William's not here today. So 5 fingers again. So the first one is, can I do a wholesale on it? So I can, basically, wholesaling is where you put the property under contract and then you sell or assign the contract to somebody else for more money. Can I flip it? Buy it, fix it up, and sell it? Can I do a seller finance for a long-term hold or a rental, or maybe a flip, like we mentioned? Can I do a lease option on it of some type, either regular lease option, a sandwich lease option, or a master lease option, or can I collect a commission? Because it's all about getting paid, and I don't really care how I get paid as long as I get paid. That makes sense. Any other questions? And I actually have a seminar coming up on the 5 fingers of real estate with the Investor Association. We'll be doing that in August, and so I'll let you guys know as we get closer, or we'll dive into each one of those a little bit and help you get going. But it's a great business, and seller financing works on everything. I've done it from huts to castles, so hopefully it'll work for you guys. You'll be just as happy with it as I have been, and feel free to reach out to me. Give me a call, or if you don't reach me, shoot me a text. I'll call you back. I'll tell you what you need, or connect any missing pieces or dots, or cross any T's that are needed. All right. Well, you guys have a great week. It's been good seeing you all. And thanks for those of you that let me see their happy faces. So Dermette, Catherine, Jose, Mike Dodona, and then Mike Vielstich. Well, he was here too. It's always good to see your faces, because it's really boring if I'm just looking at a screen with names on it. So thank you. Have a great
All
week.
right. Have a great week, Randall. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Brendel. Bye.
Welcome. Bye. Take care. Bye.